Dear friends, today I would like to speak about these solar heater panels that heat the domestic hot water. See, this is a combined system which uses a solar panel and a boiler. But in our situation, there's winter, the installation is drained, we don't want to freeze this solar panel because the water expands, the ice expands, and we can destroy it. When we design solar heater system meant to heat the water, we have to be very careful the way we use them, and also have to make sure that they are suited for commercial application. If you look at this picture, the plant room is very small on the right hand side to the bottom. But in my description, I'm going to make them larger, because otherwise you will not understand the picture, you will not understand the design. That's the reason. But in reality, they just like that. They a little room somewhere where the boiler, the solar system, it is fitted, the control, and is nowhere near the way I designed it in this picture, so you will understand this. Obviously, you will not occupy the entire ground floor. I want to make sense. This is a combined system. You got a solar heater panel which heats the domestic hot water, and I also have a energy storage capacity on a pre-buffer tank. Then we have the main buffer tank, which is heated by the boiler. Now, to use this system, you have to have a strategy, and you can run a programmable logic control or a building management control or a group of thermostats which be correctly set. I would go for a building management control. It's cheap, it's simple, and it's very precise. I'm going to enlarge this picture now so you'll see a little bit better what I'm talking about. So what do we have here? We have the main cold water supply. The main cold water supply goes through a three-way valve which can direct the water flow. It can, in the winter, it will direct the water flow directly into the primary buffer, because we have to make the solar heater system redundant. We have to drain it, otherwise the water might ice up, and as the ice expands we can destroy the tubes. But in the summer, that three-way valve will direct 90% or more of the water onto the solar heater panel, and only about 10 to 5% into the primary buffer. This is for Legionella. I would like to have some water that circulates all the time through these pipes. Then we have the main buffer, which is heated by the boiler and the boiler itself. This central heating, it is ignored because I'm not talking about it in this video. Also, the system is missing the pressure vessels, the pressurization unit, and the PRVs. I have other videos which explains how those things are used and why. If you have a shop, like a commercial premises, and you wake up very early in the morning and you have to go to work, and your cleaners will come at 6 o'clock in the morning, you need hot water. It is obvious that the sun will not have the capability to heat the water by using the heating solar panel at that time. For this, you have to start the boiler, and obviously you'll consume the energy as normal, like you don't even have a solar heater panel. If you look into this picture, you will see the main water supply goes through the solar heater panel, but the solar heater panel is blue, is cold, and that water goes into this primary buffer. And when you continue its journey to the main buffer, it is cold. You'll observe at the bottom of the main buffer, the water is cold. So you will consume the maximum amount of energy to heat the water at 70 degrees. There's nothing you can do. But this system, it's a very good system because it acts like a sentinel. When the sun will have enough energy, then the solar panel will capture the sun energy and the primary buffer will store that energy. And I'll explain to you how this thing is working. At 9 o'clock, the sun starts to heat up and the weather gets warmer. Now, if you think the main water supply will push the water into this solar panel, which is heated by the sun, and then the water will continue its journey back into this primary tank. If the domestic hot water is not used, then the primary buffer will have a pump and the ring circuit. So the water will circulate constantly from the tank into this solar panel and back into the tank. And slowly the primary buffer will heat up, probably at 50-55 degrees. When the hot water will be used, then the main cold water will push the fresh water into this solar panel heat exchanger and will come back into this primary buffer, and then will continue its journey into the main buffer. But the water which will go from the primary buffer into the main buffer, it is warm. If you see to the bottom of this main buffer, the water comes already warm, heated up. And the boiler will only have to increase 20 degrees the water from 50 to 70. So sometime you'll be able to save even 70% of the energy you waste to heat the water. So we understood from this little story that we depend on the sun intensity. So the energy we'll save will vary. It is up to how big will be the intensity of the sun on the sky. Like at 12 o'clock, the sun reached the peak. The energy delivered from the sun to the solar heater panel, it's at the maximum. Then if the water usage will be increased, the primary buffer and the solar panel through the ring circuit might have the capability to compensate a lot of water displaced by the fresh water, by the consumption of the domestic hot water. So the main cold water supply will push water into the system, which is cold, will mix with the hot water of the pre-buffer, but that water will be pushed first through the solar heater panel. And water from the primary tank will migrate into this main buffer tank. And this is the point where you will save a lot of energy. Ramping up the temperature from 55 to 70 will consume much less energy than if you will ramp up this temperature from 7 degrees to 70 degrees Celsius. So this is like a cascade system, and through my perspective, it is the best. The intensity of the sun will vary the pre-buffer tank capacity of delivering the hot water to the main buffer tank. It will act like a sentinel. Obviously, if outside is raining or there won't be any sun on the sky, the cold water will still pass by through this solar water heat exchanger, but the temperature you will gain will not be significant. However, if outside you will have, as an example, 25-26 degrees and the sun will not be there, because you have a ring circuit and circulate the water constantly, the water pushed by the mains will still gain some energy before to reach the primary tank. And then sometime you might push the water with 20 degrees from the primary tank into this main tank. Not 7 degrees, which will be the temperature that might come directly from the main. So one way or the other, you might save the energy from 15 to 70%. Now, see, if you look into this system, This system, it is a system which consider the volume of water consumed by a commercial environment like a store or a factory or whatever. This is a good system because it allows the main water supply to be heated and the energy to be stored into this primary buffer. And the boiler will have the capability to raise the temperature faster because the water will be preheated at 50 degrees Celsius. Well, unfortunately, some people decided not to go with the pre-buffer which stores the energy, and they decided to go directly with a solar panel heater and to rely on the momentum when the sun it is on the sky, like in this picture. There's nothing to store the energy. The main water supply, again, we have the two possibilities to direct the water. We have a two-way valve, which have the capability to direct the water either into this solar heat exchanger or directly into this main buffer. And this is for the winter when we're gonna drain the system, so the solar heater panel will not ice up. When the sun is on the sky, the main water will go through the solar heater exchange panel and will come back into this main buffer. If the domestic water is not used, then you'll see it's again a ring circuit which will circulate the water constantly. But because you do not have a energy storage tank, the quantity of energy you will save will be pretty insignificant. You rely directly on the intensity of the sun on the sky. So if you will lose the sun, there won't be energy stored into any pre-buffer to deliver for a period of time the hot water. Like if you remember, I told you before, these electrical panels on the roof, they use batteries to store the energy. But if you put a bulb connected directly to this panel, the bulb intensity will be directly affected by the sun intensity on the sky. So to store the energy, it is a very, very important thing. It is very important to have these energy storage devices. This system doesn't have one, however, it uses a ring circuit and it's safe to run this circuit all the time. This is the worst scenario. I will only use this for domestic application and I'll explain to you why. Just imagine it is in the night time, we already have the main buffer preheated. That main buffer have the capability to retain some energy, so we keep the water hot until the morning. But this is mostly for domestic where you're not using an excessive quantity of water. In the morning, as an example, at 6 o'clock when you gonna go to work, you will use the boiler to heat the water if you'll have a store or like a manufacturer or a shop or something, because you use a large quantity of water and then you will consume the hot water which has been left overnight immediately. The problem here is you cannot run the ring circuit because if you run the ring circuit, you will hit the planet. The main buffer, the water in the main buffer, it's hotter, it's got 70 degrees Celsius. and if you run the ring circuit, then that water will reach the heat exchanger onto the roof, and then you will hit the planet, because the heat exchanger on the roof will be hotter than the surrounding environment, and we all know that energy migrates from high to low. So actually the solar heater panel will act like a cooler, and then you'll waste more energy from the boiler to hit the main buffer. So you'll waste more energy than even if you wouldn't have a solar heater panel. You have to be very careful the way you design your control philosophy in this point. So exactly as I said before, if you will run the ring circuit, the hot water from the main buffer will reach the solar heater panel heat exchanger, and because outside is very cold and the water is 70 degrees, the energy from the solar heater panel will migrate into this atmosphere, and that will act like a cooler, and the boiler will work harder to achieve the temperature into this main buffer, but also you will waste a lot of energy, because the solar heater panel will constantly try to cool the main buffer. So this is a very bad choice. I wouldn't go with this version. You have to be very careful the way you set up your pump or your BMS or PLC when you run this application. So I think regardless of the sun on the sky, if the water is 70 degrees onto this main buffer, the energy will still migrate from the heat exchanger into the atmosphere, because the sun, the solar system, probably will not reach 70 degrees Celsius, and always the energy will migrate from the solar panel into the atmosphere, and you will hit the planet. So this is a very bad choice. If you look at the pictures, you will understand quickly what it means to run a ring circuit in this situation, which is not a good idea. One of the best solution for this system would be to bring the main water supply through the solar heater into this main buffer, and then you will heat a little bit the main water supply before it reaches the buffer, and in this case, yes, you will save a little bit of energy when you will consume the water. But again, because you do not have storage energy, the quantity of energy you save will be insignificant. Can you imagine? I mean, let's say that you will depend on the size of the solar heater panels, how many do you have, and how much they would be capable to heat the water, because this is all based on ratio. You have to see the temperature that goes into these solar heater panels and the temperature which comes out. If you'll have a storage, an energy storage device, you can use a smaller heater panel, because you'll progressively store the energy. But for instant heating, then you need a much larger panel, because you need more instant energy. This will be the only way for you to design the system. If you use this for a domestic application, and your lifestyle will match this application, or this application will match your lifestyle, then you can run in the daytime the ring circuit, because you're not using the boiler, you are at work, and by running this ring circuit, the water will go from the main buffer into this solar heater panel, and progressively your main buffer will be heated up. And this is good because no one is using the water too much, and if you wash some dishes, or maybe you don't need the water to be heated up above 55 degrees or 50 degrees. But in the evening, when you are coming from home, if you have children and you have to use a little bit more water, depend on the size of your tank, you will use the boiler. When you use the boiler, then the ring circuit will be stopped, and the main water supply will go through the solar heater heat exchanger, and will come back onto this main buffer. So you will only transit the water through the solar heaters, and the water will reach the buffer a little bit warmer. And this is good, especially guys, you know, by Legionella is good to the tank should go over 60 as temperature to kill Legionella. But even if you don't do this, if every couple of days you'll ramp up the temperature over 60, you will kill Legionella, even if you use the solar heater, and most of the time your tank will be heated up at 50 degrees Celsius or 55, depend of how much sun you have onto this sky. So this system, it is mostly for domestic application where you're not using all day long a massive quantity of water. You allow the solar heat exchanger to heat your main buffer, and that will save you a lot of money. In the daytime, as I said before, this type of installation is the most efficient, and as you will see if you pay a little bit attention, in between the primary buffer and the secondary buffer, there are two pipes. Actually, one it's a pump. The pump is connected to the programmable logic control, which sometime we will recirculate the water from the main buffer into this primary buffer to allow the primary buffer to have its temperature above 60 degrees Celsius to kill the Legionella. So this is only for safety. So this I want you to remember from time to time. That pump will circulate the water from the main buffer into this primary buffer and will heat the water, and then you will kill the Legionella, and then the pump will stop again. While this cycle will happen, the ring circuit of the primary buffer will be turned off, because you do not want that high temperature of the primary buffer to migrate into the solar heater panel. This is it. So I don't think these systems are very complicated, and I just want to repeat, I'm supposed to have fitted onto this system pressure vessel and pressure release valve, but because I have other videos in which I describe very detailed how these things are fitted and what are they for, I didn't describe them here, and I focused only on describing how a solar heater panel system works. Again, just want to say I'm doing these videos for free, they're not for money, and yeah, I'm happy if someone will criticize me, will bring new ideas, because I think if you'll put aside your ego and you'll go straight for technical information, the amount of knowledge you will gain will be fantastic. Thank you very much.